Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Doing What Matters podcast. I'm your host, Teresa McCloy, and we've been engaged in a series in the last 3 episodes, really focusing in on the real life process itself, the life management tool, the rule of life process, the modern day rule of life process that we often talk about that. And what I wanted was to just have Erica Vinson, my co host, and also one of our master coaches that coaches inside of our training community, come in and talk about the process just from her point of view. She's been coaching with it for a very long time. And we have moved into our final component in the process. And we call this real life living. So if you're new, if you're listening in and you're just catching into this series, you might want to go back and catch the other 3. They're pretty short episodes in this series, but we're diving into this final component. And Erica, welcome back to the podcast.
It's great to be here.
I want to start in just by talking about this final component that we call real life living. We often say it's the 3 R's, and it's really the sustainability piece. A little bit of the backstory for me, anyway, and you can share whatever you would like, is I had been in a cycle and a season in my life, probably in my 40s and 50s, where I was just reading lots of books, doing lots of things like, surely this will be the thing that I'll be able to implement into my life to make it feel like I was on that quest for how can it feel more restful and not so much from this place of rush. And yet I would live into that system or that process or that program for a while. Lots of them were planner based and that type of thing. And then I wouldn't anymore. And I kept saying, what is it that's the glue that would hold all this together that would help me come back time and time again to that one place? So we call this component that it's a glue that holds it all together. And it's the 3 R's. So why don't you share with us, even from your perspective, what this component is all about?
I'm so grateful for this component. I was exposed to fresh invitations to rest when I walked up the steps at Marytown and encountered the Transforming Center and the teacher that you and I both have worked with for years, but Ruth Haley Barton, and the invitation to rest, the invitation to Sabbath. And so when this component started to come full circle for you and you started developing this for the process, I was in a season of ministry where I was working, and you and I worked together for years in ministry. We did that. Work to reward was our mantra. And so we would grind it out Sunday through Thursday. Friday was our day off. And whether we were spending it together as friends or just taking a break, we were exhausted when we hit Friday. I started to learn about this practice of Sabbath and knew that it was God's idea. So it was a good idea. And it was really like, how can this be not just something that I practice when it fits into my calendar, but how can I start to actually engage these things so that I'm not living from a place of depletion and grinding it out to then have a reward, but really be able to go, okay, rest is a part of my daily rhythm, my weekly rhythm, my monthly, quarterly. Renew is a part of that. And then the review piece is so key. It really gives you a permission to pause.
What we talk about when we mention these 3 R's is the rest piece, the renew piece, and the review piece. It doesn't really matter what order. We actually have a visual that we use in our logo that has the triangle with real self on the bottom of that triangle, real life in the middle, and real work at the top. That foundational knowing of self is the foundation of how I really feel like God intended for our lives to grow out of our being into the work that we do. And then we have these 3 arrows that we draw around that triangle that weren't really a planned thing, but yet maybe was, in that we knew that those 3 arrows could represent this rest, renew, and review piece. What's interesting is when we drew them around it, they go backwards. They go counterclockwise. And as I was putting that logo together, I didn't even notice it. One of our friends pointed it out. And it really is that idea of on a regular basis, another R word, that you're doing these things. That's the glue that holds any type of rule of life or life management together is, do I pause often? So that's
Mhm.
the review, looking back, looking forward. Do I renew myself on a regular basis? Meaning, do I have some fun? Do I do things that are different than what I normally would do? And then, do I really do deep, meaningful rest on a
Mhm.
regular basis, both physically, emotionally, intellectually, all of those things? So, let's talk a little bit about each of those, just how they played out for you, how you've seen them play out for clients. Let's start with the review piece, the pausing in a little bit deeper way. How have you seen that for clients and for yourself, that review piece play out? And what does that mean for you?
I just had a client yesterday that at the end of the session, we're talking about what they were moving forward with, and they just exclaimed, and it was like, oh, this was like a mini review for me. And I was just able to reset my mindset and my action, and I know how I'm moving forward. And they said something really impactful. They said, I know that you think like I could probably do this on my own, but I can't. And so thank you for being on the journey with me. And it was just this really humbling moment to realize that when we are able to allow a client to review and to say out loud what's true and to name the things that have kept them from being who they want to be in the world, it's a sacred ground.
It is. And there's lots of different ways of doing that review piece. One is through processing with someone like coach, mentor, spiritual director, all the ways that we can show up with others, and accountability partner. So it might be you need to say some things out loud. You need to write them down in a spiritual practice way. We would often call this maybe a daily examine or a
Yeah.
weekly examine. And it is that idea of I'm pausing regularly. We teach in our process weekly. So I'm pausing weekly to look back over the week, look at my projects, look at what was life giving, life draining, some of those types of things. What are loose ends that I might need to tie up or carry forward? But having that space on your calendar, we talked about it last time. I know you do that a little bit differently. I think that might be helpful just in a really practical way how you do it. I do it on Sunday evenings in a block of time, but how do you do this review part of things?
One of our certified coaches said to me one time, it's like a review and a preview, right? The way you're even talking about this. And I thought, yeah, that's actually really good language for the way that I practice this part of component four. And it simply is close of week for me on a Friday. Afternoon is normal. And so I will take and go through and just review my week and notice who are my clients that I was with? What did I accomplish in my action steps? Where was time maybe not stewarded in the way that I want? And how do I want to shift that? And then what am I carrying forward? So it not only honors, I'm a big believer in celebration. So it not only honors those moments to, and you've challenged our team to keep those written down. That's a practice, even of review that we're doing and going, what are the wins this week? So that might be a simple way. You can review, turning my face then toward the next week. It usually happens on a Sunday for me, just engaging again and going, what am I looking ahead toward? And who's on my calendar? And where might I need some margin? Because using an electronic calendar, people can pop in if they have your link to schedule, they can pop in. So I want to make sure that I pre-decide, but it just gives me a little bit more agency and ability to steward my time when I have taken the time to look ahead instead of just reacting to what's happening throughout the week.
I love that. I do it all in one sitting, the looking back and looking forwards. Erica divides it into kind of two times. You have to find the rhythm that works for
Mhm.
you. But when you are able to do it a little bit ahead of Monday morning when you hit the ground running, sometimes in a work week, if you need a little more margin, and this is something I've just learned recently, there is nothing wrong with asking a client to reschedule or to move an appointment around. You're being proactive to say, the more I look at this is what I need. This is what I need to ask for. I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to ask for this ahead of time. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So that's why the review can even be helpful as you preview the week ahead to say, what's reality here? Did
Mm.
something else come in? Did a people block come in that you really want to give time and attention to? to be able to live in that healthy way. So that's a little bit of the review piece. When we talk about the renewal piece, many times people will go, how's renewal different than rest?
Renewal is exciting for me because the word I would use that ties to that is life giving. And so it's something that fills you up. It's from a place of abundance. It might be new and exciting, a different way than you normally engage. It might be something that you share and do with someone that's in your people block. And so it may be just a different way of engaging your body, your brain, your heart, and your head. So I love the renewal piece. Some things I enjoy in renewal. I'm a golfer. I love in the summer season to water ski. It's so peaceful for me just to be tethered to the boat, but nobody's out there. It's just me and the Lord, and I get to enjoy his creation. But I love to hike, and I like to hike in new places, enjoy that, and tennis, all kinds of. I'm a sports person, so often that is renewing, but I might even enjoy, and renewal might be going out and putting my hands in the dirt in the garden too.
We hear a lot of clients that we work with talk about, I work all day in an office, or I'm on Zoom calls like you and I often are, or I'm in meetings or things like that. I often think of renewal as what's different than what I do 30 to 40 hours a week, how much you're working. What is totally a different space? And I often use my husband in that regard because he works outside all day as a farmer,
Mhm.
and he is physically working hard and in his body and all those things and out in the sunshine. Not that he wouldn't go for a walk with me, but that's
Yeah.
not his first thing. His thing is to sit and relax and maybe watch sports on TV or watch a movie or be in a space that's inside or different. It's the opposite sometimes to me of what you would normally do. I, again, like to garden or do something that's outside, even just sitting outside drinking a cup of coffee on my porch.
Mhm.
But how do you engage your body, mind, heart differently in renewal is usually renewing to us, playing my
Mm.
piano, doing things like that. That's what we call renewal. And it also might mean stepping out of technology a little bit, especially as you're leaning more towards that Sabbath day or that rest day that is really more focused. How would you describe the rest day compared to the renewal?
Well, the word that came, and you're so much of a musical person even and know the theory behind it, but when you think of rest, there's a pause, there's a breath. And for rest, one of the main things for me when I started practicing Sabbath in ministry was to take a day where I was not engaging on social media. I was not on my devices. In some ways, not that I was overstimulated all the time, but it was just a part of that. The notification goes off and you respond to it. And so I just noticed such a slowing for me when I was able to do that. And now I actually have used the little focus part of my phone, and I have a limit each day to where it does just keep me mindful to go, you've spent enough space here. Some days I hit it, some days I don't. But it's part of that daily rest. And rest can be taking a nap if I'm tired. I loved Ruth said that to us when we went to the Transforming Center. She said, if you need this 3 hour block, each retreat, when you come, if you just need to rest, then allow your body to sleep. And it can be, that can be restful as well. But it is just practicing being present and slowing down.
From a practical sense as well, just to give you a little, and I think Eric and I, in some ways, practice this same rhythm. We work in the regular work week. I know some of you listening may not, but it's that Monday through Friday. So by Friday afternoon, both of us are beginning to shut down the world and come into a Friday evening that's usually for me with my husband, spent with those that I love, whatever that looks like. It could be we're going out and doing something, it could be we're staying home, but we're moving into a different season in that week. Saturday is much that renewal time. What's life giving? I love in the past few years, I've been able to get to a place. This wouldn't be for everyone, but where Saturday usually doesn't have an appointment on it, that I might know things that are going on, but I'm choosing to go to what feels life giving on renewal times. And then Saturday evening for me is usually at home. And then Sunday is a day of worship. You have to decide, what does rest mean for you? But it is definitely that period of time that I do try to be away from technology. Is your thinking as you walk away even from this episode in particular, but the whole process and think, what's one thing that I would like to lean into? What's one place where I'd like to say, I want to practice more renewal in my life? I want to go back to what I enjoy. Maybe some things from childhood, some things from young adult years, depending on how old you are. What's the invitation that you're hearing as you hear about rest, renew, and review? And what would you like to implement? What would you like to bring in? You heard Erica just speak about adding the little focus thing on her phone, and I know that's something she's recently done. So when you hear us share these things, we are always still a work in progress. We're always
Absolutely.
doing this process over and over again and finding what works for us.
I think in business too, when we look to a model and go, does this work? Because we can get to this fear-based place too, especially if we're a solopreneur or small business where we're like, I have to respond all the time because my clients need me and they depend on me. But I do look at Chick-fil-A and I go, they don't call it the Lord's Chickie for no reason. They are closed on Sunday, but they are a business model that has honored their values and said, no, we are going to take a day of rest. And the line's still wrapped around the building most every time I go. And I know you pull over often when you're
Yeah,
traveling going,
I
I
look for
enjoy
'em,
this. But
but
they're
not
not
on Sundays.
afraid to pause.
Yeah.
And so there's a permission, there's an invitation there for us to go, can I trust that this will continue even when I'm resting? And it'll still be there and there's enough.
Good word, friend. There is enough. And you're invited just to take each of these episodes that we've recently done through the process and just see, yeah, what comes up for you, what you would want to live into. It's not about doing it all, it's about doing something and just listening through that space. So remember, you can go to therealifeprocess.com/book resources, get some downloads of some worksheets and some different things if you'd like to engage more. You can watch a video there that we made a few years ago when the book came out. So there's lots of different ways to engage with some of our additional content there. And we just invite you, whatever the moment is that God is inviting you to, or that you're feeling invited to just sit with that, reflect on that, and remember that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them. We'll be back next week with full episodes that Erica and I will be back co-hosting. It won't be just me asking Erica questions and talking to her. I love her input and reflection on the process as she's been doing it so long. But we'll be back next week with more from the Doing What Matters podcast. We can't wait to see you then.